So this to me gives us an opportunity. If we would cut not a couple hundred million, I'm talking about hundreds of billions of dollars, and we could have a stronger national defense, we would actually be less threatened by terrorism, and we could spend that money here at home and help the people needed, tide people over, at the same time offer the next generation a chance to do what you're supposed to be able to do automatically in a free society, and that is assume responsibility for ourselves. We have a sound currency, that would be helpful, obviously. If we had balanced budget, that would be helpful. But this would mean that we could have a transition system before there's a collapse where young people could just opt out and not even be in Social Security if they didn't want to be. And if we really wanted to stimulate the economy in a transition, and we could do this rather quickly, I don't think we have to wait for a calamity. And that is, if you really want to turn the power and the authority and responsibility over to the people, we have to address the tax system. That means the repeal of the 16th Amendment and get rid of the release the economic energy, but the creative energy as well, just as what we've seen in a very narrow sense what happened in the tobacco industry. We would see this everywhere. There would be so much more enthusiasm. Today, if you go by, there will be people that aren't in this audience, they'd look at us and they say, what are these people worrying about? Look, everybody has cars and houses. Of course, fewer people have houses today than they did yesterday. But they say, you know, we still have a lot of prosperity. We've had problems before. This will all be worked out. But if we don't do something, though, it will be wiped out, because it's not based on earnings. It's not based on savings. It's not based on a sound economy. It's based on borrowing money. And that is fragile. Sure, we could all be very, very wealthy if our banker said, okay, you have good credit, we're going to give you $1 million a month to spend on consumption. Well, you know, they've done a bit of that, but how long would that last? Eventually, you know, the banker said, well, when are you going to start paying back? And then they quit loaning money, and what happens? Your standard of living goes down. It's a little bit different when the government doesn't quit loaning money because they just keep printing it. But when the tide turns, and I think that's what is happening in the last year, the tide has turned. Russert was right in that people's attitudes are shifting, but he doesn't see the connection. The attitudes are shifting. This is astounding that 90% of the people now think we're on the wrong track. What is going on with our Republican Party? Haven't they figured it out yet that we're on the wrong track?
No.
The best advice is Democrats and Republicans ought to follow the Constitution, but the Republican Party could at least follow their traditions, follow their rhetoric, follow their platform. It's much better than our programs. Does anybody recall not too long ago when it used to be in our national platform that we were to get rid of the Department of Education and Department of Energy?
Yeah.
We don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
Then they wonder why we lost credibility. Well, you know, I remember very well, of course, starting with Goldwater in '64, then with Reagan. I was a strong supporter of Reagan in '76, the year he lost. And then eventually we had Reagan, and then we had 1994 taking over the House, and then we had 2000, and we get the presidency, the Senate, and the House. Finally, I said, now, you know.
Things are going to happen.
The 94 election motivated me to run for Congress again. I've been out 12 years back practicing medicine. Maybe the country's ready. Maybe they're really going to cut. The people are sick and tired of it. They're electing Republicans who are claiming cut back and cut all these programs. So we finally get there. So did we deliver? Yes,
No.
we sure did. We delivered the goods for the Democrats.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, we delivered their platform. And
right.
today, you know, I get asked this question all the time. Why are you people out here? You're not for unity. You want to disrupt. You want to disturb the Republicans. Yeah, I'm not for disruption, and I'm for following rules and all this and being dignified about it. But yes, we'd like to disturb them a bit.
That's right. Woo! That's right.
Yet today, after all these years, we finally get control of what we end up doing. Yes, well, we did. We've had, they're begging for unity. To unify behind the consensus of what both parties have been doing, regardless of who's in power.
Right.
They come in, the rhetoric is slightly different. Even today, if we just wanted to talk about the war issue, there's obviously a difference between McCain and Obama. And unfortunately, that position is closer to ours, doesn't happen to be coming from our candidate. But the whole thing is, the policies won't change.
Yep.
There's no difference in foreign policy. I mean, Obama brags about change, real change. He talks about real change, real change, real change. But what is his real change?
Exactly.
Has
Exactly.
he ever talked about the Federal Reserve? Does he ever care about balanced budgets? Does he care about bringing our troops home? No.
Exactly. Exactly. Right.
The Republican Party is starting to wake up. A little bit late, but they're waking up. You know, we had 3 special elections here in the last year or so. Elections in Republican districts. The most significant one now, the last one was in Mississippi. It was always, you know, basically a Republican seat. Lost badly. And they said, well, there's something wrong, something wrong. But have they sort of awakened and said, what we need to do is go back to our roots? What are the roots of the Republican Party? Well, there is a strong tradition for all the things that we've talked about. Sound money. You know, the Robert Taft wing of the party was strong non-interventionists. They tried, begged, and pleaded for following the Founding Fathers' advice of staying out of these unnecessary foreign entanglements. That's not wild left-wing Democrats' liberalism. That's traditionally been a part of the Republican Party.
That's right.
So our job is immense when we deal with the Republican Party. But believe me, we're not being unnoticed.
That's right.
I mean, we are going to have an impact. And that's why you have to think about the total philosophic impact in the future and what happens to our movement and what happens to the revolution. Because that's going to continue. But everything that we do in the short run is beneficial. A lot of people come to me and they don't like necessarily education. They don't necessarily like political activity like this. But they said, well, what we need to do is fight everything in the courts. And they do. They go in the fight and they're 100% right. And a lot of them end up in jail. And which is tragic. Now, I don't like that idea of going to jail, so I become a politician and I change the law. But I don't ridicule people who take that because they're very principled and they're very brave people. And I know some very good people who were absolutely right on the tax code, and they ended up in prison because the way they collect our taxes is absolutely unconstitutional and immoral. So we have those vehicles, and they all work. But I hope what comes out of this will be a movement. And I don't know how it could be stopped. If all of a sudden I had a change of mind, said, well, you know, I'm a bit tired, I'm worn out, and I've changed my mind, and I don't like to take on the establishment, I'm leaving. For you, it would be irrelevant. You know, what the heck? You would continue. It is going to continue regardless, because we can't put this back in. And this is why it's going to, take a little while. But there's a tremendous opportunity. The recognition that this isn't working. The knowledge that and I understand in this state, we've had a lot of people that are allied with us who have already won nominations in the primaries. And this is just wonderful. People are running for office. Yes, they may not win, but, they're establishing a position. I know that something significant is happening because of the different attitude on the House floor and the way they treat me. It used to be totally exclusion, like, oh, hi, morning, or something like that. But now it's a lot different. And it happened, you know, in Washington, you know what really talks? It's, you know, the dollar, the money side. So the first time I really got significant attention is not when I talked about taxes and spending and foreign policy, and oh yeah, that sounds popular, why don't you tell me about your philosophy? No, what got their attention was that day that you and others said, let's have a money bomb and we say raise $6 million in one day. That's what got their attention.